Welcome everybody. Today we'll be learning the fundamentals behind gear design. We'll be discussing about involute gears. Now what the gears are used for? They are used for connecting two shafts which are not very far apart. So let us say we have got these two shafts that we intend to connect, and at the same time we intend to achieve some velocity ratio. So that, let's say for example, if this shaft undergoes one turn, this one should undergo two turns, and so on. So to begin with, let us consider these as the centers of the two shafts that we intend to connect. So we mount some sort of, let's say, discs on either of the shafts. So on the first shaft we mount a disc whose radius is, let us say, R1. On the second one we mount another disc whose radius is R2. So essentially the center distance between these shafts would here be R1 plus R2. Now let us say one of these is driving and the second one is driven. Let us take this one as the driving, though it will not have any bearing on as far as the kinematic design is concerned. So this one is the driven shaft. So if the first shaft is, let's say, rotating in a counterclockwise sense with an angular velocity of omega 1, the second one, if they are rolling here without slippage, the second one will be rotating in the opposite sense with an angular velocity omega 2. And at this juncture, the point of tangency of where both the discs they are touching, both will have a linear velocity v. The tangential velocity is given by the product of the angular velocity expressed in radians per second and the radius expressed in meters or millimeter, whatever the units of your choice. The same units will get transferred to the velocity. So velocity is radius into, this is R1 omega 1, radius into angular velocity, and this would be equal to R2 omega 2 if there is no slippage. So this straight away tells us that R1 upon R2 will be equal to omega 2 by omega 1. This is the first expression that we get. But no, there is a problem with the friction discs. If the load is more, they'll tend to slip. Now how much the load would be, let's do that calculation very quickly. Now for this disc, if the amount of load, or you can say the tangential force here that is to be transmitted, is going to be action and reaction is going to be equal and opposite for both the discs. So if this force is F, the torque would be R cross F, because R and F here at this point they are perpendicular. So we have torque is equal to R1 times F. And if omega 1 is the angular velocity, we can straight away get power is equal to tau into omega 1. This is equal to R1 F into omega 1. And if we neglect the frictional losses here, the same power will get transmitted here, and this would be equal to R2 F into omega 2. So this is the amount of power. So if we know how much power is being transmitted, we know the radius and the speed of rotation, the angular velocity, we can straight away find out this force. So that's why there was a small discourse. So the idea here is that when this force is large, and because the frictional force is limited, these discs will tend to slip. Now to avoid slippage, we make teeth on these discs. That is the birth of gears. That is how the gears are born. So what we do is, we first of all replace these representational discs by pitch circles. So the representation of pitch circle is a dash and dot line. So we make these, so I have the privilege here on the board because I can erase it to make it a dash dot line. So we have replaced these with the pitch circles. So they are representing the imaginary discs which have been replaced by the gear. So now I label this as pitch circle of the first gear, likewise the pitch circle for the second gear. Now the teeth will be cut, maybe they protrude outside the pitch circle as well as they dig into the pitch circle. So the teeth will be lying between the two limits. We term them as the dedendum circle and the addendum circle. Okay, let's draw two more circles here. Okay, I think that's decent enough. So these are the circles which are representing the depth to which the teeth are to be dug into the gear. And then we have the addendum circles. I label them if you are not able to hear. So this is the addendum circle for the first gear. I'll use a different color to avoid any sort of confusion. Okay, so this one is addendum circle for the gear at the bottom, and here we have addendum circle for the first gear. Then we have the dedendum circles. Let's label them also. And so here again we have the addendum circle. Now, of course, the addendum circle of either of the gears should run clear of the dedendum circle of the opposite gear. So here we have got a little bit of clearance. Likewise, here also we have a little bit of clearance. Right. Now we need to make teeth. In another video, I have already shown you how we can construct the involute on a base circle. Now, because involute can only be constructed outside the base circle, so ideally the base circle should be smaller than the dedendum circle, so that whatever tooth profile we have is entirely involute. So let us decide on the base circle. Let it be around this much in size. So this is my base circle. Likewise here also, I'm just going by the ideal condition that the base circle is smaller than the dedendum circle. That's not always the case, because practically we face so many problems that it can't always be so. Anyhow, so now let us say we have a tooth profile constructed onto this base circle of the first gear. So this is the involute profile for the first gear, and likewise we have an involute profile here for the gear at the bottom. I'll use a different color to avoid confusion. Done very well. Involutes always begin like at the starting point, they are perpendicular to the base circle. So the portion of tooth lying between dedendum and the addendum, this much portion, will actually form the physical tooth of the gear. This much portion here and this much portion here. Beneath this, the base circle is imaginary. So on an actual gear, you don't get to see the base circle, you don't get to see the pitch circle either. What all thing you have with you is the addendum circle and the dedendum circle. That's what you can measure directly. Pitch circles would be used for doing all sorts of calculations, but in practice, involute gears are kind of like they get rid of the pitch circles once they are made. So pitch circle will come into picture only upon assembly. Now here, where the profiles touch, we draw the common normal to both the profiles. Now the involute has the property that the normal drawn to involute will always be tangent to the base circle. And likewise for this involute also. So when the moment we draw a common normal, that will become tangent to both the base circles. So leaving aside the inaccuracies in this figure, something like this will emerge. So here, okay. Now this is the point of contact. This is tangent to the base circle, so these are perpendicular, this is radial line. So here you have got RB1, this is this is RB1, this is RB2, radii of the base circle. So if you just look at this figure, we have got two triangles. One triangle is this one, right? And the second triangle is, I should be using a different shade. The second triangle is this one. Now, in these triangles, one of the sides equals the radius of base circle. The second side equals the radius of the pitch circle. Likewise here also, this side equals the pitch circle radius and this one equals the base circle radius, and these are the right angle triangles. Now, if we term this angle as phi, this is the pressure angle. This angle will also work out to be phi, and so would be this one. So this is phi, this is also phi, and this is a right angle triangle. So this gives us the relationship between R1 and RB1. So the RB1 equals R1 into cos phi, and likewise here also RB2 equals R2 into cos phi, where phi is the pressure angle. So if we want to have the base circle smaller, right, then the involute will become more curved and this pressure angle will increase. If we can live with a larger base circle, the involute will become more straightened out and the pressure angle will be less. It's desirable to have lesser pressure angle, but that leads to other manufacturing problems. So this is the fundamental behind the design of involute gears. The point of contact will always lie along this common tangent between its points of intersection with the respective addenda. So this is from where the addendum of this gear intersects with the common tangent drawn to the base circles, and this is where the addendum of the other gear intersects with this common tangent. That means this point of contact will lie only on this segment. If we increase the addendum, the starting point will shift downwards. If we reduce the addendum, this point will shift upwards. But this is all the way on which the point of contact can travel, and this line is known as the path of contact. So this is a path of contact. We'll do the detail of this entire thing geometrically, but first of all it's important to understand how the gears they mesh. I hope this lecture helped. Thanks.